Hello there, happy Money Monday, and welcome back to another episode of the Empowered and Abundant podcast. Today is part 3, continuing our conversation about my 2025 review, looking back on the quantum leap year of 2025 in my business and exploring the 4 different things that had the biggest impact on my 2025 growth. Now, if you're following along with me, I know there are a few of you who are, then welcome to part 3. If this is your first episode, or maybe you didn't catch part 1 and part 2, that's totally okay. They do build upon each other, but they're also stand alone. So if you haven't listened to those other episodes yet, go ahead after listening to this and go back and listen to part 1 and part 2. Before we dive in, I need to let you know that today, January 12th, enrollment is officially open for the next round of Empowered Abundance, which is my signature 6-month group program to help you transform your relationship with money from the inside out so that you can live your most abundant life, which means right now is the time to book a free consult to discover if this next round of Empowered Abundance is the right next step for you. So you can book your free consultation with me using the link below in the show notes to schedule your free consult before enrollment ends on January 26th. Okay, so let's dive in to part 3. We've already explored and talked about so far how 2025 was a huge quantum leap year for me. If you're not caught up, the year of 2025 was my 5th year in business. I hit the 5-year anniversary mark. I went full time in my business for the first full year and supported myself financially just off of business revenue. I created this podcast, I did a bunch of other things, and also I hit my revenue goal of 100K year for the first time ever. So 2025 was a huge year for me. In part 1, we talked about building momentum being the first impact on having such a quantum leap rapid growth in 2025. And then in part 2, we talked about intentional strategic action. Now in part 3, the third factor that played a huge role in my 2025 success was expanded capacity. When I zoom out and look at the big picture of what things really had the biggest impact, what lessons did I learn, what areas in which did I grow, expanded capacity is one of them, and it is a big one. So I'm going to dive in to how this showed up for me throughout the year, but also the past 5 years, and also like what this looks like for you moving forward. Like how can you expand your capacity so that you can step deeper and deeper into your next level of abundance. So when I talk about expanded capacity, especially looking back at 2025 as a whole, there are 2 primary things that I am referring to. There's tangible capacity, which is your ability to put out effort, your ability to take action. This ties into last week's episode about intentional aligned action and how you spend your time, your energy, and your money. Your tangible capacity is your ability to hold, to do, and to experience life more fully. And so 2025 was like expanding my tangible capacity as much as possible. And especially when I look back at the whole 5-year journey of building momentum and getting to this point, everything that I have been learning over the past 5 years is part of expanding my tangible capacity, expanding my ability to do more, to output more, to be capable of like accomplishing more, but also experiencing more. So, for example, at the end of 2024, when I decided to say yes to a crazy, like 64-day sailboat adventure, seemingly out of the blue, that whole experience became a massive capacity expansion for me, because what I was saying yes to was basically living on a sailboat in a small, tight environment, being in a different location than normal, living a different schedule, living a different way, and also running my business at the same time. So it really pushed me to make decisions about how I was going to do all of those things and how I was going to manage like boat life and having this amazing boat experience, but also working at the same time and saying like, okay, this isn't just an infinite vacation. My business is important to me and I have clients I need to maintain. So I'm going to keep going with my business and keep running my business. And not only that, I'm also going to attempt to grow my business. And so during that time, I was working less hours because I was on the boat, but I was still focusing in and zooming in on what are the most important things for me to be spending my time, my energy, and my money on that's going to make the biggest difference for me while I'm in this environment. And so being on the boat, I really had to expand my capacity for what I was able to hold, for what I was able to do, and being able to do more things in less time. And knowing and proving to myself that I could actually get a lot of work done, because I basically also during that time decided to do a whole like launch and promotion period for these mini offers and like workshops that I had. And so I was creating weekly emails and sending out emails for this huge promotion period. So I really proved to myself during that whole boat journey that I was capable of outputting a lot, and that I was also capable of maintaining my business and working less time, and recognizing that it actually takes me less time than I expect to get things done. And so then when I came back from the boat, I was like so excited to work and do more, because it felt like I had been restricting my workflow and kind of like giving myself more time and space and freedom and like a little bit more chill and vacation, which, you know, I'm a former workaholic, so it was a little hard for me to learn to chill in my business for a while. So getting back from the boat was like a slingshot. I was so excited to work. I was so excited to do, and I had a lot of projects I was looking forward to in my business. But because I had pushed my business capacity and my tangible capacity while being in another environment and still getting a lot of work done, when I got home and was back in my regular environment and was back in my regular routines and I had more time available, it was like a slingshot. I was able to get so much more done so quickly, because I wasn't dealing with environmental stressors, and also I had learned that I could get a lot done in shorter periods of time. And that like launched me into 2025. It was such a powerful energy to bring into the new year. And a lot of this contributed to what I talked about in the last episode, which was having grounded strategic routines that I was committing to. It was so easy for me to create my Monday marketing routine and just put that on the calendar and know what I needed to implement and know what I needed to get done, because it just felt like a no-brainer, and it felt quick and easy and simple, because I had already expanded my working capacity. So everything really felt like a breeze at the beginning of the year, because and it really changed my ability to work for the whole entire year, and my belief about what was possible for me and what I was capable of. And throughout all of 2025, I had decided to do 4 launches, and I was committed to launching Empowered Abundance 4 times, no matter what, and just following through on that plan. Sometimes those launches became really challenging and uncomfortable and emotionally draining and difficult. And even when it was hard, I would often remind myself throughout the launch, like, I basically did a whole launch when I was on the boat. Like, if I can do that, like create emails in the moment while working less, while literally being under sail, like while the boat is moving from one location to the other in the middle of a rainstorm, like if I can work and maintain my business in that situation and circumstance, then I can get through this launch. Like, I can output more, I can do more, but not from a place of like force and push and hustle, but just reminding myself I have a bigger capacity to follow through, to implement, to execute than I even realize right now. And the boat was like my first huge capacity expander, especially because I also did a lot of travel in between the boat as well too. I did a huge trip where I traveled to 3 different locations in a 2-week period of time. That was a big capacity expander for me too, to just be like, yep, I can do all these travels and I can be okay. And I can keep maintaining my business, and just proving all of that to myself. Another tangible example of capacity expansion for me in 2025 was actually my first launch of the year. So at the start of the year in January, I decided that I wanted to launch 4 times, and I put the start date for each program on the calendar. But it was already January, so I was like, well, I'm too late for the first launch, so this launch isn't really real. I'm not going to promote it that much. I'll just talk about it to a few people who are interested, who I've talked to before, and that's kind of it. I'm not going to treat it like a real launch. I'm not going to take it too seriously. I'm not going to do all this promo because I haven't had enough time to actually implement it and prepare for it and really be strategic and intentional with my launch. And it was really funny. I actually got coaching from my coach, Stacy, at that time. And I remember it so distinctly. She was like, why not treat it like a serious launch? Like, what if you just decided it was a serious launch and you took it like very seriously? And I said, oh, okay, right. I can just decide to do that. And so I basically like pulled a launch out of thin air, switched my brain, and then went full on into launch mode and said, yes, okay, I'm going to write more emails. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to promote it. How am I going to implement this? And that was a huge capacity expander for me because it shifted my brain out of thinking that I needed all this time and effort and energy to implement the launch. And instead, I just decided to implement the launch, and that the timeline, the arbitrary expectation of how much time I thought it would take me to implement it, that didn't matter, and that instead I could just decide to take it seriously. And that's what I did. And so I learned, one is the boat definitely helped with that because again, it showed me like, of course I can launch. I'm able to do a lot of work. I know that I can pull this off because I've pulled it off before under different circumstances. So I know I can tap into the energy and the ability to do this and implement it. And then pulling that launch out of thin air showed me that I can do things quickly in my business. Like I can launch and also be successful in that because I did sign clients from that. It did work. And I was like, oh, I could do this. I would have never realized that I was capable of signing clients from a launch that I just pulled out of nowhere for 2 weeks and then implemented. So that really expanded my capacity. And then this also happened again later in the year for my second launch of the year, which was happening around March. And this one, as opposed to implementing at the last minute, I decided to start implementing nice and early and really get ahead of it. And I also decided to start this podcast. So not only was I implementing the strategic launch that I had set for myself, but I also decided to implement a whole other modality of marketing, which is this podcast that you're listening to right now. So basically I added on a whole nother thing on top of the strategic launches that I was practicing, getting good at, and following in my set timeline. And in addition to that, I was also traveling. I was going to my annual trip to Costa Rica. And so I literally did the launch, created the podcast while traveling within that month period of time. And that was a huge capacity expander, because the reality is that I believed it was possible for me to do that. I knew I could do it, even if like I could have gotten a little bit in my head and be like, oh, I'm traveling, I don't have time. I got to create all these emails, and now I got to do this podcast, and podcasting takes forever, etc. But I just decided to do it, and I decided to implement it. And I knew that it was possible for me. And even though it was kind of like a lot at once, I did it. I did implement it, and it never became too much. And I can see that as a result, because I just decided to do the podcast, and now I have been implementing it every single week since. It was just a decision. And that's really what expanded capacity is can you decide to be capable of it? Can you decide that it is going to be okay, that you can make it through it? And this was reflected again pretty recently, actually, in November of 2025, when I took my biggest trip ever. I went to Thailand for a week for a yoga retreat. And oh my gosh, I live in New England of the States. And so a trip to Thailand for me is literally like the farthest place I could go. It is on the exact opposite side of the world. It is a 12-hour time zone difference. Like, it is literally night and day. And it takes over 24 hours of travel to get there. So I had to take like 2 6-hour flights and then a 12-hour flight just to arrive at my destination. And then to be completely thrown off with the time zones and have massive jet lag. And I was only going for a week, which I didn't realize when I booked it. I should have gone for so much longer, but I didn't. And at the same time, I was also running my business and preparing for launches. Actually, I had just finished a launch. So I was like launching leading up to this trip. And really, like, I love looking at this trip as an example of tangible capacity, because even though this wasn't just business focused, there was a deep belief within me, like, yes, of course I can take this trip, even though it's big, even though it's intimidating, even though it's a lot of travel and the time zone is drastically different. I was like, I know I'm going to be okay. I know that I am capable of doing this. I also know that I'm capable of working right up until I leave, and then working as soon as I come home and as soon as I get back. And honestly, I didn't really give myself much recovery time. That's another thing I'm learning. But in terms of expanded capacity, I am capable of doing all of those things. And it's like being in that airport, sitting on that 12-hour flight, you could go crazy. I could have gone into like, oh gosh, get me out of here, frustration, exhaustion, annoyance, right? That's why there's a lot of people that are frustrated in airports, especially when there's like issues and things like that. Luckily, there were no issues. But the ability to just stay almost in like a optimistic trance state and just be like, you know what? It's fine. I'm okay. I'm going to get there when I get there, and just like keep going and not let the mind drama of I can't do it, I'm not capable, pull me down. And that's really what it comes back to. And then my last like example of 2025 of a tangible capacity expansion was I did successfully implement all 4 launches for the year as I planned. And I did successfully sign clients every single time, even though I did each launch a little different than the last. But then I decided to pull a bonus launch out of thin air, basically just like what I did in January of the year. So it was a very full circle moment. So I had just gotten back from my trip to Thailand and literally decided, okay, I'm going to open enrollment as a bonus for 2 more weeks, starting from the moment that I got back from Thailand until the end of November. Like a spontaneous open enrollment period. And so I had tried to prep for this as much as possible before my trip to Thailand, had my trip to Thailand with the crazy travel, crazy time zone, came back, not much recovery time, And then I went right into open launch mode, spontaneous open launch mode. And I did that. I implemented that and I signed clients from that. And that's just another example of, okay, my capacity is expanded. It is possible for me to do more, to open up to last minute things, to implement powerfully, to get things done, to decide to do things, and then to be capable of doing them. And every time I do that in all these different ways of kind of pushing my capacity to be bigger, your capacity grows in that. So then on the other side, even if it's a moment of kind of like push or discomfort or challenge, when you come out of the other side of that, now it's like every single launch is going to be way easier for me because I know that if I can do it after 12 hours of jet lag and 24 hours of flying and then pulling a launch out of thin air with no advanced planning, like, of course I can do anything. I can do anything in my business. And this is the same for business. It's also the same for life as well, too. Recognizing where you are in new, challenging, difficult ways in your life, where you're experiencing more things, where you are expanding your capacity. Maybe you're in a different environment. Maybe you're in a different situation. Maybe there are challenges and obstacles coming up that you need to face that are difficult, and it's expanding your ability to handle all of those things. And when you do that, when you move through that from a place of safety and groundedness, when you come out the other side, that's the quantum leap energy that propels you. So I know that for me, like going on the boat in 2024 absolutely contributed to my success in 2025 because it was a massive capacity expander that changed the way I thought about myself, the way I thought about my business, and then I continued to expand and push my capacity for the whole rest of the year. But not only am I talking about tangible expanded capacity, I'm also talking about emotional expanded capacity. And this is equally as important, if not more important. So there is the tangible capacity of doing, of implementing, of like experiencing more in your life, like, pulling a launch out of thin air and pushing myself to do a lot of effort in a short period of time while being under different, more extreme circumstances. But then the emotional capacity is being able to hold bigger and bigger emotions that come in tandem with expanding your tangible capacity. So it was a capacity expansion for me to push myself to do 4 launches in a year. That was another capacity expander. I had never done 4 launches in a year before, but I made the decision to do that. And with every single launch, I experienced deep feelings of failure, hopelessness, not enoughness, without fail, every single time. That's just part of my process of launching. It's very vulnerable. It's really challenging. You're putting yourself out there. You're saying like, I'm open for business. I'm open for sales. And you can make a lot of things mean things about you during that experience. And it brings all of the self-doubt and like any area where I'm not confident and all like the thought errors, anything icky. It just comes to the surface when you are in a launch and when you're in an area where you are expanding your capacity. It brings all of the gunk to the surface. And that is part of the process of capacity expansion. Sometimes we like to pile on like shame onto our negative feelings and thoughts when we're in like a negative place, when things are hard, when things are challenging. Not only are we experiencing the challenge, we're also piling on stuff on top of that, being like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be able to get through this emotion faster. I should be happy in my life. I shouldn't feel like these feelings of not enoughness at all, right? We guilt ourselves for the challenge that comes up in our expanded capacity, and that's just piling on more and more. but instead seeing that the feelings, like the negative feelings, the hard feelings, that's actually part of the process of capacity expansion. Because when we expand, when we try to expand and grow and live a more abundant life, expansion happens in all directions. Expansion always happens in all directions. It has to, which means if you want to feel more joy and passion and freedom and bliss, you're also signing up to feel more pain and suffering and loss. Because in order to be able to reach higher, you also have to be willing to fall farther and feel deeper. And so not only are we talking about tangible capacity, we're talking about your ability to feel deeply and to be safe even in those deep, challenging feelings. So for me, this literally looked like riding the emotional roller coaster of running a business, traveling, launching, pushing for a bigger goal than I ever had before, failing repeatedly with every single launch, and doing all of this at the same time while trying to have 4 launches in a year and output more work than I ever have before. Right? That's going to bring up a lot of gunk. It's going to bring up all my doubts, all my insecurities, all my hopelessness. But when you have the capacity to move through that and to feel that deeper, that is what allows you to come out the other side and actually receive the capacity expansion, the benefits of the capacity expansion. And to take these deep feelings and move through them quicker and know that it's safe and okay for you to feel them, because there's wisdom to be had in there. If launching wasn't uncomfortable, then I wouldn't be growing. And that's really the purpose of launching. That's the purpose of any version of capacity expansion. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone and stepping into more. And that step of stepping outside your comfort zone naturally brings gunk and challenge and discomfort to the surface, right? And so for me, with launching, what that looked like was being able to go all the way to the end for every single launch. Because when I flash back to when I first started my business and was trying to launch for the first times, there was a couple times I launched and wasn't seeing any traction, wasn't seeing any success, and just slowly faded off and was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that didn't happen, and would pretend like my whole launching and promo period and even the program I was offering, it was just like, well, I'm going to pretend like that didn't happen and none of that existed and just like move on. I gave up so early. And so really my challenge and my expansion for this year was not giving up and going all the way to the end, which I did do. I did implement every single launch where I did like send out emails up until the end. I did promote it up until the end of enrollment. But what I did realize going through this for a whole year and doing all 4 launches is that even though I was tangibly going all the way to the end, I was emotionally still giving up. Like, yes, I would implement, but inside, I was giving up before it even began. And I found myself thinking like, oh, it's not going to work. I've failed as soon as enrollment opened. And my brain would make these assumptions and would feel really uncomfortable about my potential failure, about potentially not hitting my goals, about potentially not getting results and continuing to fail launch after launch. And so it felt easier and safer and more comfortable for me to emotionally give up sooner and get comfortable with the fail and say, okay, well, I failed, but I can plan for the next one. And also like I accept where I'm at and the numbers that I enrolled. Right? So even though I was tangibly implementing to the end, I was emotionally giving up repeatedly. I was quitting and calling it quits in order to avoid the emotional discomfort of failing. I was protecting myself from the failure in advance. And so something that I learned in 2025 was deeply expanding my emotional capacity by being more comfortable with failure, with doubt, with not enoughness, with a sense of doom and hopelessness that comes inevitably with every launch that I do, and saying, how can I stay in deep emotional belief all the way up until the end? How can I not just emptily take the steps, but how can I fill every action that I'm taking with my energy and my belief that I am going all the way to the end and staying tapped into the possibility that I could be successful, that I could hit my goal? And when you're able to feel deep discomfort, when I was okay with the inevitable hopelessness, when I could ride that wave, then I wasn't afraid of feeling those things. Because I had failed so many times, I'm comfortable with failure. I know I'm going to survive it. I know I'm going to come out the other side of a failed launch and pick myself up and think about what I'm going to do differently for the next one. So because I had expanded my tangible capacity over and over again, and I had survived it over and over again, I proved to myself that I was going to be okay no matter what. And therefore it was safe for me to make the risk of doing another launch, that it was safe for me to go all the way to the end. It was safe for me to face hopelessness and disappointment because I knew that I would survive it. And this is vital when it comes to stepping into your next level of abundance, is the more that you can trust yourself deeply, the more that you can feel safe in feeling really, really big emotions, of riding the emotional roller coaster of life, which includes feeling the lowest lows, but also feeling the highest highs. Like, that is what you are signing up for. And expanding your capacity to be able to hold all of those things, that is what makes stepping into your vision inevitable. That, again, is what empowers you to keep going no matter what. And if you're not afraid of failure, if you're not afraid of suffering, if you're not afraid of pain and loss and deep emotions and getting rejected and, being told no after no and losing, if you're not afraid of those things, then it helps you build so much more momentum, because then you're going to pick yourself up. Then you're going to be okay, and you're no longer wasting any energy or effort or capacity on doubting yourself, on wondering if you're going to be able to keep going or pick yourself up. That just becomes obvious and inevitable. And all that energy that's being wasted on questioning and doubting, all of that just gets to be momentum and fuel towards the capacity that you are stepping into. And this is why, in the first month of Empowered Abundance, all we do is work on deep awareness exercises, because those are the foundations for capacity expansion. In month 1 of Empowered Abundance, one of the things you learn is how to process emotions deeply and how to feel safe in that no matter what. Because when you feel safe, even in the ick, and when you feel safe no matter what, that is what opens up the door for you to hold bigger and bigger things, for you to expand your capacity. And that's why it's the foundation to Empowered Abundance, because we need to find that now and set those foundations now so that you can step into your next level of abundance. Because stepping into your next level of abundance literally means expanding beyond your comfort zone and stepping into a new reality. So all the gunk is going to come to the surface as a result of expanding your capacity more into your abundant life. You have to know how to address the gunk that's going to come to the surface, the feelings of not enoughness, the discomfort, the challenges, the lows, and the fear of failing, and the need to be safe as you step into something new. That's exactly what can hold us back from actually expanding our capacity, is the need for safety and survival. So if you're able to internally cultivate a deep sense of self-trust, self-love, self-confidence, a sense of feeling safe no matter what, then that is what can allow you to tangibly expand your capacity to live a bigger, bolder life. Okay, so this has had a huge impact on my 2025. 2025 was a year of actively, intentionally expanding my capacity. And as a result, 2025 was my best year in business yet. And I also know this is just the beginning for me as well. There's still so much more capacity to be expanded. So if you are interested in learning the foundations for expanding your capacity so that you can hold more of life, so you can do more, so you can step into a bigger vision of abundance and be capable of experiencing all of that, of holding all of that, then Empowered Abundance gives you the exact skill sets and foundations to help you do that so that you can expand in all ways, whether that's expanding into your business, bringing in more money, bringing in more revenue, being able to do more, being able to say yes more, being able to achieve bigger and bigger goals, being able to live a more fulfilling life. Like whatever your capacity expansion looks like, Empowered Abundance gives you the foundations to feel safe and solid no matter what, and to move through deep, challenging, emotional issues so that you can come back to that safety over and over again and expand into the abundance that you truly desire. So today, enrollment is officially open for the next round of Empowered Abundance. We begin on February 3rd for the next group round, and enrollment ends Monday the 26th. So right now, you have the next 2 weeks to book a free consultation with me where we will explore exactly where you are now, exactly where you want to go. What does your vision and your next level of abundance look like? And how can Empowered Abundance specifically support you in bringing that vision into reality? Now is the perfect time to do this work, because this is exactly how you can make 2026 your most powerful, abundant year yet. And it's just such a gift to give yourself, kicking off 2026 by literally transforming your relationship with money and deciding that you're ready to step into your next level of abundance. That is the absolute greatest gift you could ever give yourself. And trust me, your future self will thank you. So go ahead and use the link down below in the show notes to schedule your free consultation with me before enrollment ends on Monday, the 26th. Okay, that is all for this week, part 3 of my 2025 review, where we looked at expanded capacity. Next week is the final part of the 2025 review, and I promise I have been saving the best for last. I am most excited for part 4 of the 4 things that have impacted my 2025 quantum leap year. Have a great rest of your Money Monday, and I will see you next week.